Okay, at the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, another great guest who has been on the show once before. He's running for Congress out in Nevada as well. Joins us here on Skype. Colonel Kerry Bowers. Colonel, thank you so much, sir. How are you
Thank you,
tonight?
Chris. Glad to be here this
Very
evening.
good.
Thank you for
I
having me
know
on
you've
today.
been very, very busy, haven't you? Running your campaign. I've been trying to get you back on the show. I appreciate the first time that you came on. I'm talking with Tom O'Malley. He's running for the ninth district out here. One of the questions I posed to him was why do we keep treating our veterans the way we treat them? Why, long history, ever since World War One, the only ones who actually get the care and the honor they deserve is when they come home in a bag and they get the full honor, the full burial. But veterans that just have to go to the hospital, go to the VA, it's a nightmare. And that's the topic of tonight's show, Project Mayhem. It's like mayhem out there. Why do we keep doing this, Colonel? Go ahead.
Well, I think probably the biggest answer for that, or the best answer, is that we've got government involvement. And when we have government involvement, then we typically run into accountability issues. And we've seen that with what we've seen with the recent experiences with the Veterans Administration and just trying to hold people accountable for the poor services that veterans have received. It's really a part of the overall government bureaucracy and many of the programs we see in the government, which the VA is a part of. And how go those other programs? So too go the programs that we have with the Veterans Administration. One of the things that I have done, I've actually got 12 pieces of original legislation. One of those already submitted to Congress for a new global strategy, but 12 pieces ready to go. Even if I'm not elected, I'm going to be putting this legislation forward, but one of those is the American Veteran Medical Reform Act. And one of the things that I'm proposing is I would like to eliminate a lot of the bureaucracy we have today, and two, a lot of the capital investment that we make in facilities. I don't know how aware you are, but here in Nevada, we just had a new VA center to open up, a new hospital to open up last year. And even before the first patient came through the front doors, they had already determined that the emergency room was too small to handle the number of veterans they anticipate to come through there. So you see, with everything with government, we're always behind, so to speak. You know, in planning, we have to look so many years out where we need to be, and by the time we really get there, and particularly with a community like Las Vegas, that has quite a change in the volume of veterans over the years as we've seen the economy come and go, it gets to be very difficult for the government to best manage that. So what I'm really looking at in terms of a reform measure is I'd like to quit making the capital investments that we're doing in the infrastructure, the bureaucracy that we have within the Veterans Administration. Let's scale that back. Let's start turning over these facilities that we have to the states and the individual communities that can take on those hospitals.
Sure.
And let's look at putting in clinics, offices within each of those facilities, as well as opening up clinics that veterans can have access to, where they will go, be identified for whatever problem that they may have or be complaining about, and giving a voucher, and with that voucher be able to go to the facility that's closest to them that will offer the care and services that they need. And let's utilize the free enterprise out there in order to be able to provide a good service that will occur as a direct consequence of competition.
Let me stop.
The veteran doesn't like that facility, he moves on. So what we're talking about is now moving what we know works best in the business world, free enterprise. Let's move that into our Veterans Administration, where I think we'll get the better service at a lower cost. And when we're talking about cost, we're really talking about to the taxpayer. So we get rid of all this huge bureaucracy. We get rid of all this money that we're putting into these facilities. We also are having a shortage of doctors and qualified personnel to work in these facilities. Let's get rid of that. Let's focus on a voucher system and get our veterans the help they need as promptly as they need it.
Tom, get you back on. Talk to Kerry Bowers about your proposal about the waiting period and going somewhere else. Go ahead, Tom. I know you already said that, but say it one more time.
Terry, my thought is we know some of the waiting times for the vets have been absolutely horrendous. I've been lucky; mine haven't been bad, but I know a lot of people who have had it bad. My idea would be that if once we establish what the waiting limit is, in other words, the VA cannot see you and treat you, not just see you and treat you properly within X amount of time, whether it be a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever is established. At that point, that veteran can go to whatever facility that he deems can take care of him, and the government puts the bill for that.
Sure. Go ahead, Kerry. What do you think? Is any of that language in your legislation, or have you talked to people about that idea?
No, not at all. I think it's very similar to one of the proposals, though, that they already have, and that is if you can't get services now, there is a voucher system that they were working on to compensate for the problems we're having now and the backlog that they have now. One of the problems that I see with that, and there's going to be problems with every plan, even whatever I come up with, as long as the government has their hands in it. And we all know that everything isn't perfect all the time. But as long as government is allowed to have more and more avenues of bureaucracy, and they would have an avenue to say, well, what's the time period going to be? You haven't waited long enough. What's the time period on this disease versus that kind of disease?
Right.
And it gets to be a bigger.
Yeah, the lawyers will get hold of it.
Pass, just like what we have with our tax system. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. And we need to cut it off at the ankles, if you will. And I think doing that and refining really the services to our veterans, to those clinics where they can go to immediately, get the voucher they need and direct it to the proper medical help. And if that medical help doesn't do the job for them, then they're free to go somewhere else and get that taken care of. And I think we can do that within a reasonable budget, certainly more than having bureaucracy, facilities, and taking care of our patients the way we do now.
So I'm going to ask, you make a great point, Kerry, about getting government out of all of this stuff. This seems to be the problem. Every time, and you make a great point about, well, what's the time period going to be? The lawyers are going to get hold of it. You take a simple 10-page bill, and it turns into 2,000 pages full of language. Kerry, I want you to answer first, and then Tom, answer after this. How about not only just getting the government, but really trying to put a handle on these bills that turn, like I said, from 10 pages, a simple idea, into these 2,000-page things with all of this legal language in it. How about we start from there? Go ahead, Kerry, and then Tom.
Well, I think it's very interesting when you go to the legislative manual writing style for congressmen. One of the things I always like to point out to people, I recommend people read that. It's and how our bills are made. These are documents that you can find online there. But one of the things it says in there, and I hope I can quote this almost word for word, but legislation should be written for the individual to understand. In other words, looking at the lowest common denominator out there, which I would think, for the most part, would at least be a high school level understanding. But here's one of the things, and I think that this is pointed out very well in some of Peter Schweitzer's books. Peter Schweitzer is an apolitical writer that has a staff that gets together. He's written a number of good books. For example, one was called Throw Them All Out.
Yes.
You see, a lot of those bills are made big purposefully. And they're made big purposefully by the staff that work in congressional offices.
True.
In fact, many of them, there's a revolving door term that they use, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but many of these young staffers want to go and work on these bills because they see themselves as becoming the expert in it, and as soon as possible, they're out of that congressman's office and working for the industry that bill most affects, and they're making six-figure incomes because they're the only ones that can interpret that bill.
That's absolutely.
And so you find that really there's corruption in even the purpose of having the size of the bill we have. I think Congress ought to be like what we had in the military, and that is we had, your operational level planners which said go and take care of the enemy, and then you had your tactical level people. Well, many times I think that those bills, in addition to being put online for the people to read at least 60 days. I don't think that having bills passed overnight, unless it's an absolute emergency, do we need to have any time limit less than, say, 30 to 60 days to review those bills. But certainly, in order to be able to get those down, one of the things I said when I was running for president was I'd like to see them 200 pages or less. And as president, if it wasn't 200 pages or less and put into a style that I could read and quickly understand, it's going back to you. Then you're going to need 2/3 of the Congress to pass it. I think that if the average individual can't read and understand the bill, then we're going in the wrong direction.
Tom?
Those could be made in a relatively broad, they don't have to be terribly refined, but a relatively broad concept that people can understand, and then from there we'll take and work it to whatever issue we need to in the various departments to define where we need to make it work more efficiently.
Thank you. Tom, go ahead.
Well, what we have is a government right now that has become self-perpetuating. And the more jobs they can create, the more jobs they need. You look at the size of the congressional staff, like Kerry said, perfect example. Look at the size of the IRS. Let's see, let's really go to more jobs for them. So we'll make those guys the enforcers of Obamacare. So let's hire a whole bunch of people that are going to go check on people that don't have insurance. It's never ending. And as far as the way the bills are written, it's idiocy. You get a healthcare bill that's 2,000 pages, and we have Nancy Pelosi telling us we have to pass it before we know what's in it. That's, my motto for my campaign is bring back common sense, and that is so far from common sense that it's ridiculous. And as far as Terry's comment about making Congress work a little bit more like the military, having worked at both the tactical level and the strategic level at CENTCOM, I agree. Have the operational planners out there, get the commander's intent down there, figure out what we have to do and get it done.
Is this one of the magics that could possibly happen with the Donald Trump presidency? And Kerry, why don't you go first? Keep it quick, and then Tom, because Tom, I know you want to get back on the road. Can you stick around at least for a couple more minutes?
Sure.
Okay. A Trump presidency. Do you think he's the kind of guy that would get something like that done? Strategize the whole thing. Kerry, go ahead.
Well, I'm hoping that his business savvy will point us in that direction. That will keep him focused in doing that very thing and trying to reduce those bills down and have them make more sense to the American people. But I think we're so early at this point in time, and it's regrettable that we're where we are because we really don't get to see any of the real ideas from these candidates. I have to go and pick up books and things that they've said in the past to really decide what direction that they propose to go in, what plans and programs they have.
This is true.
So, to answer your question, I can only hope at this point, but I have no concrete evidence that will occur.
Tom, go ahead.
Okay, Donald Trump doesn't look at a problem as a Democratic problem or a Republican problem. He looks at it as a problem for the American people, and he takes a businessman's approach to fixing it. Whatever it takes to fix it, he will fix it. I do want to see who he brings on for his foreign policy team and for his national security team. That's going to be very important for me. But if Donald Trump is, as it appears to be, the Republican nominee for president, I will fully support him.
Excellent, excellent. I had asked Congressman Pete Hoekstra earlier this morning basically that question, but then the second half of the question was, okay, what would happen with a Hillary Clinton presidency? Kerry, you take it first, and then Tom, take it from there.
Well, I kind of look at it like this.
Kerry's smiling over here. He's laughing in the background. A Clinton presidency? Oh, here we go.
I have to look at it from the standpoint of where are we today?
Sure.
And we're certainly well off the course that the founders envisioned for this nation back in 1787 when they wrote our Constitution. And maybe we've talked about this before, Chris, but one of the big concerns that I've had actually for both parties is that when we've had Democrats that are able to lead the Congress and lead the presidency as well, we find that at best we come back parallel to a course that we have already far departed. I think that with a Hillary Clinton administration, and unfortunately with a Congress that doesn't seem to have, let's say, the intestinal fortitude or the forthrightness to basically put a halt to this, what I consider to be unconstitutional measures that the president has been taking. I think Ms. Clinton is going to continue in that same direction. But at the same time, I have to say this too. Talking about being off that course, this has been the unfortunate consequence when Republicans have been in office. And that is, at best, they have come back parallel to course, never returning to the course the founders saw for this nation, and in some cases continuing to add to liberal progressive programs that have further departed our course.
Right.
So what do I expect to see in a Clinton administration? More of the same of what we've been seeing in the Obama administration, perhaps even worse.
Tom, go ahead. Take it from there.
My fear with a Clinton administration would be the appointments to the Supreme Court, which will be a disaster for this country for more than a generation to come. The Second Amendment would go down the tubes. She's already made it very clear that she would change the Second Amendment. She's in favor of changing the First Amendment. So as far as the founding fathers are concerned, she's the last person they'd like to see in there. This would be a complete and utter disaster for this country, and after 4 years, let alone 8 years of a Clinton administration, this nation would be completely unrecognizable.
Absolutely, it would be. It would be, and we're gonna see the three of us, gentlemen. Don't take this the wrong way because I've got it too. We all have gray hair. We remember a different time. We remember the way things used to be. We see exactly the direction that we're going, and we're all trying to affect change. My concern is it's going to get worse before it gets better. The only problem is we're all getting old ourselves. So by the time it gets worse, we're going to be very long in the tooth, and I'm concerned that it'll be our generation that suffers the most under this dystopian society that the left is dragging us towards. Kerry, can you offer some hope here? Please, Colonel.
Well, I got to tell you, this is kind of what I've been telling my audiences lately, and that is a responsible government is a reflection of the electorate, and so too is an irresponsible government. What it's going to take, and starting at the earliest ages, is we've got to re-educate our children. We have to do it in our homes, and how we do it at homes is by having discipline and responsibility, taking those children into the churches and synagogues that they should
Yes.
be in, where they get the moral foundation that we're starting to miss in this nation today, to put discipline back into our schools, to eliminate the liberalism and the socialism that's being preached in our schools today. Because when we look at that next generation, and I love watching Water's World and shows like that, to see exactly what
right.
people are thinking these days.
They're not
And that's what
thinking.
scares me. It's that thinking. That,
They're not.
It's hard to believe that someone like Bernie Sanders, that is a declared socialist, has the following that man does today. And that's just, that's indicative of where, unfortunately, Chris and Tom, that's where our generation failed. We failed. We failed to make sure that this nation stayed on the track that the founders put it on. We failed. We surrendered our rights, our privileges, getting our children into the schools and into the discipline that they should, and disciplined environments they should have. It's not entirely it's entirely our fault.
It is. Tom.
If we don't change it, it's never going to change until we hit rock bottom, and as with any drug addict, then the light goes on. But it's going to be late, and it's going to be even harder to fix at that point.
That's true. Tom, here in Massachusetts, your district, you had mentioned Fall River. Fall River is a major city, obviously, in Massachusetts, but it's got a high unemployment rate. It's got a high illegal immigration rate, high, I'm going to say even legal immigration rate. I live in Worcester, very diverse community. Unfortunately, it is my opinion that what Kerry is talking about is that there's a disconnect between our youth today. We have inner city gang culture, a deplorable educational system here in Massachusetts, which used to be the pinnacle of America, and other states used to try to emulate us. Here we have Common Core. Our students here in Massachusetts are getting dumber and dumber and dumber. Tom, is what Kerry's saying, not only just the demise of the family value system, but the whole demise of our educational system, so that we produce these people, like Kerry was saying about Water's World, where these young kids are just completely clueless about everything. Go ahead.
Well, they have that, and part of that, or a major piece of that, is the educational system and what has happened to it. We don't teach geography anymore. We don't teach American history anymore. We don't teach civics or government anymore. So if we don't teach it to them, they're not going to learn it on their own. They're not going to learn it anyplace else. And the liberal media has been no help whatsoever in this issue. They just keep going on, and the media has become, instead of being what they're supposed to be, the watchdog of government, no matter which party is in power, they've become a lapdog of the liberals in the Democratic Party.
Sure.
And anything the Democrats want, and anything they want to do, they're all for, and they will not produce anything that opposes the Democratic point of view. And it is a case in point, the big investigation now on Facebook, that Facebook sort of kind of didn't promote conservative points of view when they were should have been a trending story. So now Zuckerberg has contributed twice as much money to Democratic causes as he has to conservative causes. It now says he's going to have a full investigation. Well, it might be a little too late there. But the education system has to go back to what it was. Common Core needs to go away. We need to start teaching American history again and let this generation know about American exceptionalism. The generation of the millennials, we're probably done with them. We've already screwed that one up. So it's the next one coming along that we need to save.
Exactly, exactly. Let's switch gears a little bit here. Talk about. I want to talk a little bit about GOP support of your elections, if there is any. And I've said this many times on my show. A lot of the candidates I interview find that they're not getting any of the mainstream GOP support for their campaigns. They always tend to try to pick somebody, and we've seen this divisiveness in the not the Trump campaign, but during Trump's, ascending into to his presumptive nominee status. Why do we keep repeating these things? I mean, my biggest fear is that come November, we repeat a Romney in 2012, where Romney was defeated very closely because a lot of people just sat it out. Oh, he's not conservative enough, or well, he doesn't fit this narrow litmus test of what a conservative or what a Republican is. Do we have a chance to see that again coming up this November? Let me switch a little bit and get Tom's opinion on that first.
My fear is that we will have that. Now, the fact of the matter is, if Donald Trump's the nominee, the rest of the party needs to get behind him. Because if they don't, we're going to ensure a Democratic victory. And if Ted Cruz happens to be the nominee, everybody has to be behind him, or we're going to ensure a Democratic victory.
Sure.
The evangelicals stayed home and didn't vote for Romney because he was a woman. Had they come out and voted for him, he would have won. There's no question about it. Not that he ran a great campaign, nor did McCain. But I think Romney right now needs to keep quiet and stop his criticism of Donald Trump. And the fact of the matter is, the American people, and I've learned this from just the fact of going out and getting nomination papers signed by over 2,500 people, that they're fed up with the establishment politicians on both sides of the aisle. And this is why Donald Trump is doing so well. I read something a while back, right wing, left wing, they're all part of the same bird.
Sure.
So people looking for something different.
So Kerry, take it from there. But I want to. Why are people like Romney and Billy Crystal, not Billy Crystal, the other Crystal there from National Review, they're thinking of starting their own independent candidate. They're trying to throw the monkey wrench in. Not that I think it's going to have that big an effect on the campaign, but I mean, why? Why would they? I mean, what is this insanity that they're thinking of doing here? Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think what they're hoping on is some type of a contested convention, actually, that will enable another candidate to step up and maybe become favored over Donald Trump. And I'm thinking that at this point in time, they're making whatever ways that they can to draw interest away from Mr. Trump. But I don't think that's going to happen. Where the people are today, and we see this in the Democrat Party as well as in the Republican Party, is they're tired of what they see in terms of the mainstream establishment. They're tired of electing people to an office that promise one thing and yet do something else. Mm-hmm. And, frankly, it isn't so much the message, and I think we see that with Bernie Sanders, and we see this with Mr. Trump. It's not the real plans they have, but it's how they say what they say. Mm-hmm. It reflects the feelings of the people. And so the people feel that anger, and they can relate to that anger that they see with Sanders, that they see with Mr. Trump and with their individual parties, and that's what they're responding to. One of the things I've been saying all along is that if we could have taken all the candidates' actual plans, and we had put them down individually on a piece of paper, and you did not put the name above those plans, I bet you Mr. Trump would not be the presidential candidate today. Because many of his plans, which I have studied, are not reflective of what I would consider to be the normal Republican conservative values. In fact, on health care, he calls himself a liberal because he believes in a single-payer health care system. Right. But he believes in essentially one of the tenets of the Communist Manifesto, which is a strong progressive income tax. And that is what he's continuing to promote. So if we were to take these individuals and put just their plans, their actual detailed plans down on a piece of paper, no name, I doubt the people would have picked the candidates that they have today.
That's unbelievable. And that's absolutely true. If it was a blind test, I think the outcome would be a lot fairer. I mean, do you think though that Donald Trump has gotten just by being a juggernaut? I mean, you know what I'm talking about. His brashness, his boldness, his just in your face campaign style. Is that the one key thing that has projected him into here? Go ahead, sir.
Well, let me back up for just a second. Last time you and I talked, I was a presidential candidate. I think that was last summer.
Yes.
Since that time, I got out in October of 2015 after I completed my requisites for the Federal Election Commission. But one of the things I learned, one of the things I talk about today and will continue to expound upon, and it actually has resulted in me filing a petition for rulemaking with the Federal Election Commission, which they are still examining for possible inclusion in the future. You see, Chris and Tom, we did not select the presidential candidates we have today. Those candidates were selected for us by the national media. They were selected for us by the national media in corroboration with the national political parties. And let me give you an example. Let me tell you what I mean.
Yes.
And my proof and part of it that's gone forward with the petition for rulemaking. When Senator Cruz was announced last March of 2015, by the national media, and every one of them did this, they came out and said he is the first Republican to declare, sometimes they said Republican candidate to declare. That was a totally fabricated story. It was a lie from one end to the other. Senator Cruz was number 55 to register with the Federal Election Commission. I was number 29, having registered a full year earlier. But I tried as hard as I could to be able to get some recognition and get media attention to somebody that actually had plans for this nation. I could never get that. So as time went on, here's the unfortunate thing too, is that Reince Priebus and any other member of the National Committee never went on TV the many times they were on and say, no Fox, no CBS, no NBC. He is not the person. In fact, we have 54 other qualified candidates that we are going to examine. Mr. Cruz is number 55. And when the media got done and said there's 17 Republican candidates, that was all a total fabricated story. At that point in time, there were almost 500 registered Republican candidates.
That's absolutely true. I've interviewed a few of them. I've interviewed, not you included.
And here's what, not only the RNC, but the DNC, when they were saying that Secretary Clinton was the first, she was the 34th Democrat to so register, announce, declare, and become a federally registered candidate within her party. So petition is saying is that in order to have truth in reporting, they cannot use a descriptor as they have used in the past. Whenever they announce a candidate in the future, they will have to say something to the effect that Senator Cruz announced his candidacy today, becoming the 55th Republican, the 209th of party and non-party affiliated to so register. And where you find out where the other candidates are is at the FEC.gov website. Now, one of the big reasons I put in this and still holding off on a federal lawsuit is this. Is that when they did that, they clearly violated the contribution laws of the federal election laws of the United States, which said you have to give equal and opposing time to all candidates. Now, you can do any specific story on candidates that you want to do, but when you go on the television and announce to the people of the world that there is one and one only candidate, that is a falsehood. That is contributing to your campaign unquestionably. Contributing to their campaign, for which they should be held accountable for violation of the federal election contribution laws. This is the kind of stuff we have to clear, and I'm seeing the same thing, unfortunately, right here in Las Vegas. We have at least one reporter, and fortunately the newspaper put in one of my rebuttals recently. She, upon the amount of money that's taken into contributions, she decided that two specific candidates deserve the title as the most serious contenders, basing that on money alone. While this candidate, I am fully self-supported. I do not take endorsements. I do not take any money from anyone. I'm fully funding this campaign, and I am the only one that has a detailed plan. Instead of her focusing on the merits of what we're contributing in terms of our plans to these campaigns and what it would mean for this district, this state, and this nation in the future, she decided that two people were serious contenders based upon the special interest money they received. That is a problem that we have, not only here in this state, but we have in this nation altogether. Money and the media and a corrupt national committee, both parties, that corroborate that by not standing up for the other candidates.
Kerry Bowers, Colonel Kerry Bowers, I want to thank you so much. I know you wanted to do a half hour, and you're going to be great in Congress. You managed to get it right down to the bottom of the half an hour. And I want to thank you so much, sir, for taking this time out. Quickly, plug your campaign, the district, everything else. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. My name is Kerry Bowers, and I'm running for Congress in Nevada's Congressional District 3. I appreciate it if you take a look at the most comprehensive and detailed site on my website at www.kerry, that's Kerry, Bowers, B as in Bravo, O-W-E-R-S, kerrybowers.com. Thanks, Chris, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, sir. You have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.